Welcome to my CanJam New York 2025 report. CanJam is the premier show for experiencing music through a huge variety of headphones, earphones, and all types of associated audio gear. Not only that, but you can also meet the people who created it as well as your favorite audio YouTubers. Firstly, I'd like to thank Meze Audio, Schiit Audio, HiFiMan, Bloom Audio, ZMF headphones, and all my patrons for making this report possible. Over to the show itself. When you enter the right-hand doors of the ballroom, the first thing you encounter is the Focal listening stand, and this gave me a chance to try all the new models which I hadn't got around to trying, including the Hadneys and Azeries. Now, these are relatively inexpensive, $700 open and closed back headphones. As usual, I bought my Chord Hugo and Tugo setup with me to the show, and they also had the name electronics there. Listening to the Hadneys, these sound like a mini Utopia, and given I've been listening to the Utopias a lot recently, this for me was a good thing. So it had clear, crisp highs and a slightly full bass, and this made it nicely balanced for, say, some random pop and rock that I called up. And obviously it wasn't going to be as clear sounding as a pair of Utopias, but it made me think that it could be a good headphone for someone who wants to get an idea of what the 2022 Utopias are like without needing to outlay $5,000. On the other hand, the closed back Azeries was a bit boomy in the bass in comparison, but managed to bring through the mid-range okay regardless. Not surprisingly, the soundstage is somewhat narrow. Now, briefly trialing the Stellia, I wasn't a fan of the very thin sound, which very much lacks bass. If it did deliver vocals quite nicely, getting into some classical such as Meze, it did sound a little bit odd tonally. So that kind of sound, while it may have sounded very open, didn't quite work for me. Now, the Clear series has always been popular as their kind of high mid-range headphones, and the Clear MG did Meze pretty good this time with fairly clear percussion, if, again, typical of the Clear range, not with quite most micro detail. It definitely does a better job of having a lighter sound signature than average than the Stellia, with a bit less bass than either the Hadneys or Utopia.
Joel, our latest headphone and our most affordable headphone ever, is $18.95, a new low price for Abyss. It is musical, fun, exciting, a natural, smooth sound filling the space. You should feel like you're immersed. It runs on just about anything, scales up with really great equipment. If you've avoided Abyss in the past, this is a really great chance for you to try us again. I know you won't be disappointed.
Joel was a full and fun sounding pair of headphones with good dynamics, albeit with a slightly closed in sound stage. They used less expensive parts to keep the price down, and they also added a clicky headband, which was cheaper and simpler.
All right, so we are releasing or showing two new products today at CanJam New York. First one just released is our new phono preamp, all tube. It's Starnia. It is also fork beard enabled, so you can control everything, the different loadings, gain, input, filtering, mono, everything via fork beard. Valhalla 3, one of my personal favorites. Not released yet, but we are showing it for the first time. It is very nice, very sweet sounding amp.
It had seemed that Schiit Audio's crate was going to be held up by FedEx, but it turned up at the last minute in time for Saturday, and the guys had managed to set it up quickly, so I parked myself in front of the new Valhalla 3, which was fed by a Bifrost, as well as the new Starnia with a turntable, and the Mjolnir 3 and a pair of Odyssey 4Zs. Now, starting with the Valhalla 3, the guys have pulled out a pair of old HD800s signed by Axel Grell, and listening to Massive Attack's The Spoils, the HD800 signature was mellowed out just nicely, even if the semblance of the classic HD800 model was still apparent. Now, naturally, the setup wasn't super detailed, not as much as the HD800s can do, but it was pleasant enough without overdoing it. The Starnia and Mjolnir rig was playing Jimi Hendrix, and the sound was relaxing and enjoyable with a big soundstage, and it kind of made me almost regret giving up my vinyl rig, but no, I just don't have the room. Final had their D8000 and D8000 Pro DC versions there. Now, with similar sound to the original, with a little bit of a pullback at 4 kHz, gives a more relaxed and open sound, and they imaged fairly well, but with a somewhat more intimate soundstage than I remembered. HiFiMan were at the show with all their current models, including the new Unveiled series, and you could also listen to the amazing Shangri-La system, although it was kind of hard to hear what it's capable of in the main room. They also had the new Isvana closed-back headphones, which have a subwoofer built in, which give, well, maximal bass to say the least, and I will be reviewing those in the future. Grado had their new S950 and HP100 there. Now, with the large G cushions, they sounded very kind of light and open, and maybe with Magnificat had potential, although I'm not sure of the tonality of it, and again, show conditions and very open headphones didn't really help with that. Now, for example, with the G cushions, Melody Grado was too bright, and it might be suited to quieter volume listening, but vocals were pleasant with a bit sharp on the louder sections, and the tonality maybe wasn't quite what I was looking for. Now, Grado were one of the first companies, if not the first company, to offer not 2 but 3 different earpad options for their headphones. We have the standard bowls, which weren't on any of the headphones I tried, the G cushions, which were the big ones, usually for the original G series, and the flats, which make everything sound more closed in and intimate. Now, Melody Grado, again, was too bright with the G cushions, but with the flats, they sound as warmer but more congested because, of course, the drivers are right up against your ears. Now, the cymbals in the background were more noticeable with the flat pads on, and maybe these could compete with the latest $2,000 headphones, but maybe, at least at the show, didn't sound quite as refined, and again, show conditions kind of made it difficult to hear. And they did have the well-known Grado brightness in the mid-range, which does make things like guitar sound more intense and exciting, which is what Grado does really well.
Here I am with Alex Kogoresh, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, of Meze Audio, the engineer for the new Poet headphones. And, well, the first question I actually have for you is, what was an interesting challenge in designing the Poet versus, say, designing some of the other headphones that you had?
So, glad to be here. Thank you for the interview. There were some interesting challenges when designing the Poet. We were having some resonances or reflections and focusing from the actual cup, so from the sides of the cup. To tackle this, we employed a T-shaped frame. So it's basically a cylinder. Plastic that blocks sound from going into the cups and therefore reflecting back into the driver or focusing. So that helped tame the frequency response quite a bit and avoid some unwanted peaks.
So I gather that actually the newer driver for the Poet is equivalent to the Elite driver in terms of quality, like you have the Empyrean driver and then the better Elite driver. And so now with the Poet driver versus, was it the Lyric driver, that's an upgraded driver in much the same way, is it?
Yes, that's true. So it uses the same frame from the Lyric driver, but it does feature the diaphragm from the Meze Elite. So it's the porous diaphragm. It's quite a bit thinner, lighter. So it does achieve. It sounds a bit faster. It contributes to a bit more detail.
I noticed one thing when I had them versus the Lyric is that with the new titanium alloy headband,
yes,
that helps fit a lot better. Does that help, like acoustically? That must help some people get a better seal. Was seal so much an issue with these, say, versus the Lyric?
I wouldn't say so. It does have PU leather ear pads, so any breaks in seal will be far more noticeable, but it's not a problem. We chose the thickness and geometry of the titanium headbands to pretty much achieve the desired clamping for it. Also, compared to the Lyric, if you look, the Lyric tends to have more of that sort of shape, which makes it
the angled slider.
Exactly, yes. The angle slider, which tends to make it go a bit like that, whereas this one has sorted the issue by having a
more vertical than the
more vertical.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Excellent. So what music do you listen to? That's an interesting, we always want to know what the people who make stuff listen to. So what's your favorite genre or your favorite band? Or?
That's an interesting one. I don't necessarily have one favorite genre. I'm a bit all over the place with my music tastes, which I think work well with tuning a headphone and working on a headphone, because then again you can strive to make it, let's say, perform relatively well on most music genres. But worthy of note, like today I can listen to, let's say, an obscure electronic track, and tomorrow death metal. Or
Yep.
So I pretty much dabble with everything. Like
Excellent.
I'm into all sorts of music, including Romanian folklore.
Oh yes, that's something. Well, you got to be. You got to be into your own stuff.
Music, yeah.
Nice. Oh well, thank you very much for this, and all the best. And we look forward to seeing you at the next show.
Thank you.
It's just more natural sounding.
As usual, at the Chord table, you could try out any of their digital products, as well as the new Alto Professional DAC amp. And Rob Watts was on hand to answer any of your questions about any of Chord's digital products.
Well, welcome to my booth. Finally, after so long, I have my own IEM brand. We're displaying the Project Meze, the Project Daybreak, as well as the Project Reference. But the most immediately available one, the IEM that we'll be releasing, the first would be Project Meze, which would be limited to about 500 units. Hopefully, we would also be able to extend them to 999 units eventually, depending. Not anymore, because we only have 3 digits. Anything else? So the Meze would be our first foray into the IEM market. This is an IEM that is, I would say, there's really not a lot of gimmicks or anything new that we're trying to promote or show off with the Meze. It's simply going to be a good IEM. So we're going to have a metal shell, anodized aluminum, great cable, interchangeable connections, and good sound. And I feel like that's the foundation for our brand, is that it's no BS. We just provide you the best value, and that's it.
Critical was there, and it's really interesting having someone who has spent so much time reviewing and trying so many in-ear monitors and headphones actually design and put his money into making his own brand. Now, of there, he had a few different prototypes, including the shamelessly V-shaped Meta. And Critical said, well, he liked some more bass, and so that's what you get. You get things like Come As You Are was entertaining, but not fatiguing, which was good, even despite the V-shaped tuning. Magnificat, for example, something completely different, worked quite well. If I may have some small disagreements about tonality in the mid-range, something that tends to happen, I think, with V-shaped sounding in-ear monitors and headphones. Melody Grado was interesting, a touch odd in the mid-range, but there was plenty of detail, an impressive amount for what are tending to be $300 in-ear monitors. And at the beginning of that track, there are some kind of subtle, the whisperings going on in the background. And I almost thought that someone had whispered something in my ear, because I could hear them coming from behind me, something I would more expect of $3,000 IEMs, not $300 IEMs. And that was a bit freaky. But the ones that impressed me the most were the Daybreak. Now, they had very nice nuance to when listening with Melody Grado. Obviously not maybe quite as much detail as maybe a high-end IEM, and only maybe the slightest hint of what I would call the old kind of balanced armature treble that you tend to get with IEMs, though I'm not quite sure of what the components are used inside these IEMs. Now, a touch of congestion in that those IEMs did come off as smoothness, but overall, the balance of tonality and detail was extremely impressive, and I'd easily shell out $200 for a pair of those. They were by far one of the most impressive IEMs I've heard. Now, if the production quality can keep up this kind of sound quality, I'll be very impressed indeed. Into the Headamp room, and here's Justin to talk about the new CFA3 SSZF and his new volume control.
Hi, I'm Justin from Headamp. I'm here with Carrie from Xsonic.
Hey everybody.
And this is the Headamp CFA3 Deluxe Edition that's going to start shipping very soon. Carrie was actually responsible for doing the volume control for this, along with the programming for it. And he's going to talk about that for just a couple of seconds.
Yeah. So this is something we had in mind. It's something that came from a project we were working on prior to talking to Justin about it. This is basically a 256-bit relay-based attenuator. There's 16 relays total, 8 per channel, and this has basically half decibel steps. What's nice about this is we've actually been able to put different tapers on it. And the taper is effectively when you turn the volume knob up. When you get to like the 9 o'clock position, there's a certain volume there. But for very sensitive headphones, you might need a little more play so that you can effectively get a much more turn in the dial, so to speak, before you get to a certain volume level. So we've been able to do that, and we have on the remote control here a couple of different levels. So you can actually change the taper of the control. And because it's all digital interface to our relay-based attenuator, we're able to do that seamlessly. So we effectively convert a position on the dial into a decibel range. The display that you can see over here that I think you just had a shot of that allows us to do a number of things too. So we even include balance control on this. You can turn the knob, which behaves just like a standard pot actually. So you see the little chiclet on the knob there. And effectively we can then change the balance. So if I move the balance, you can see that the numbers are changing. So the balance on one side is going down, and then I can bring it back up. What's really nice is in the next version, and maybe Justin will talk more about the internals of that, but we're going to take all this technology and put that in the tube version of this. And so that display that you see here will actually be mounted on the front plate. And all this capability, and probably some extra things as well, will be put on there. So why don't you talk about this?
So this is the prototype of the CFA3 Deluxe Edition, which will not have this display. Everything will be controlled by the toggle switches. So the way that will work, if you adjust the balance, as Carrie mentioned, you can see it on the display. But if you don't have the display, you can just press this button here in the middle, and it will restore the balance back to center. And if you want to change the taper, for example, to the sensitive mode, you just press this button. It'll take the volume back to 0 first. And then it's now in the sensitive mode. And so then when you turn it up, for example, you can be on step 30 and your attenuation is minus 60, which is pretty quiet. If you go to the normal louder mode, so now if you go to step 30 on the normal mode, you're at minus 32.5 dB, which is a lot louder. So the knob is at about 10 o'clock. It's going to be fairly loud. So between those two modes, you can, depending on if you're using a sensitive headphone or a harder to power headphone, like the HiFiMan so far unveiled, you can make it much easier to adjust the knob where you want it to be. And then, on the tube model that Carrie mentioned, it's going to have a tube preamp built in. The display is going to be mounted here on the front panel, and then the remote's going to have a lot more features to adjust the gain, input, output, things like that.
Right. And one of the interesting things we also did was we actually are planning on a second level of attenuators, one on the left channel, one on the right channel, in between the tube output and the actual amplifier. And this is to control the level, the gain going into the amplifier sections effectively. We believe by doing that we can keep a much quieter output at certain volume levels.
Yeah.
So just a lot of kind of new features, innovation going into this next generation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So right now we do have a lot of pre-orders that are going to have to be filled for the CFA3 Deluxe Edition. Those are going to start shipping in several weeks once we get these attenuators built. And then for the tube version, we're still working on some of the design aspects for that. But I would expect we'll probably have a prototype of this level probably in a couple of months, maybe 3 months from now. So look for that definitely at the next CanJam.
This head was sourced with a Brooklyn Bridge 2, and listening with a pair of DCA Expanse headphones, there was a great sense of effortless competence. The Black Keys became an event of both delicate precision and intense emotion, something that the best amplification does with the Expanse. The CFA3 was most definitely as good as everyone said it was.
Hey everybody, this is Tal Kosin. I am with Dekoni Audio, here to tell you about the new Dekoni Audio Ensemble cable system. This is a modular system that I developed over the last, I guess probably about 18 months. Something that came out of the idea of wanting to clear the clutter on my desk. And so what we did is we designed a system where you have a headphone connector. Sorry, I'm playing with the spaghetti here. So you have your amplifier connection, Then you have this little 2.5 millimeter side over here. So what you can do is you have a pair of HT600s. You can actually connect them like that. It's a twist lock 2.5 millimeter connector. This thing is strong, it's sturdy, it twists and unlocks. It's got a aluminum casing, solid as a rock. Let's say you're done with the HT600 and you want to listen to your ZMF Atriums. Well, we have a mini XLR connector. Then you just plug that right into the same cable and off you go. So we have this blue cable right here. It's a nylon wrapped, pretty standard cable. We have a silver plated copper cable, 8-strand braided, great for microphonics, or lack of microphonics I should say. And then we are coming out with, in the near future, a beautiful PC UHD copper edition. This will be made for products like the Focal Utopia with the Limo connectors. We'll have the Hybros connectors for the DCA headphones. Of course, we'll have the mini XLRs as well in this material. So there's a couple different ways that it could be used. If you have multiple amplifiers, let's say you have a balanced amp and an unbalanced amp, you could leave a cable plugged into each amplifier. You could have your unbalanced plugged into one and your balanced 4.4 millimeter plugged into the other, and then you could just swap the headphones back and forth. Or you have multiple headphones, you can actually leave the tail plugged into your headphone so that you don't break the failure point that's on the headphone. If anything breaks, it'll break here, so this shouldn't break either. And then you can swap headphones out at will and have one cable draped across your desk. Makes life a little easier, makes it a little cleaner, and that is how we roll here at Dekoni Audio.
Stax were also there with the X9000 and a T8000 sourced with a Hugo 2 like mine. These have magical imaging with really nice bass. Some of the tracks I listened to was so easy and smooth to listen with. Acoustic tracks having each instrument having their own space to themselves. Clear guitars on tracks, clear vocals. Even the nuances during the middle of the most intense parts of music being very clear.
How you doing? I'm Andrew from Bloom Audio. We're here at New York CanJam. Got a lot of stuff on display, including the highlight of the show for us, which is the Audio Technica Narukami. This is a very, very special amplifier and matching headphone. We've worked closely with Audio Technica to bring this here. It's made with a very rare type of wood called Kirigaki wood. It's from trees that are over 100 years old that if they fall, they're able to take this wood and usually goes up for auction once or twice a year. It's typically used in high-end luxury furniture, but the lead engineer at Audio Technica used it to make this statement piece, which is really just a phenomenal tube amp. Probably the best I've ever heard of any kind of audio setup. So we've been showcasing that this weekend at the show, along with a variety of other brands, headphones, IEMs, DAPs, and sources and things like that.
I did briefly try the Narukami setup, and I managed to find a few tracks I knew from on the Eversolo DMP A10 that it was the source, such as Radiohead's Dex Dark, Another Brick in the Wall, Beatles Come Together. Now the whole thing sounded like old school hi-fi. I don't think it was the amp so much, but the headphones, and I wish I could have tried the amp with a different pair of headphones, because the headphones sounded like it had this weird boomy bass, kind of tonally weird treble, and it was this very woolly, warm sound, and it just didn't feel like super high quality. But it is very typical of limited edition Audio Technicas that they can sound very, well, unusual to say the least. They always do something unique, which maybe is suitable for the collectors who really like that kind of thing.
Hello there, I'm Sensei from Fosi Audio, and now I would like to introduce our latest tube amps. Its model is GR70. It totally has 4 tubes to amplify, and you can see there is a very big knob, volume knob on the top, and also it has the tone controls with bass and treble adjustment. It can output totally 830 milliwatts into 32 ohms. For the output, it has a 3.5 millimeter and 1/4 and also it can work as a preamp. It has the RCA output out there. The price point for these cheap amps will be around $200.
So you're at High-End by Oz Viva room. We're basically debuting the US debut of Egoista Belva headphone amplifier from Viva. This is their top-of-the-line offering. It comes in 2 chassis. The left chassis is the outboard power supply, and this is the Headamp. In the Headamp, you can drive dynamics and planners, and also E-stats. And also with a Y adapter, you can drive your stereo speakers as well. It delivers 19 watts in single-ended triode Class A. And what's really unique about this, if you can come closer to here, it's actually a chassis within a chassis. You see that it's actually a copper chassis inside. So all of the electronics or the cabling and everything is inside in a copper chassis. And if you can hold your hand over the tubes for the heat dissipation, for a big tube amplifier like this, it's very little. That's basically the copper's input to our system. It dissipates the energy, the heat. And you can take a look at here. It's lukewarm at best, so it's not dissipating a lot of heat into the room either. This is a point-to-point wired, handmade in Italy. It can come in the black chrome finish, which leaves a lot of fingerprints, or it can actually come in any customized color. We're using the Viva numerical DAC underneath there, and as a streamer, we're using the Ineos Zenith Statement music server and streamer. All of our cabling is Albedo silver cables, which are handmade in Poland, and they're monocrystal silver cables. Like this power cord here is their top-of-the-line offering, and it's a 5-gauge pure monocrystal silver power cord, and you can see the interconnect and some of their offerings in the other side.
Hey, Zach here from ZMF Headphones, and we're at CanJam 2025, so showing all the stuff that we have at ZMF, and we always get a big room in New York because we try to bring as much stuff as we can. The big things for ZMF in the next year are not all in this room and not all product-based. I think things that people know about ZMF is that we take a while to get you your headphones, so one thing we're trying to really work on this coming year is having a stock headphones be in stock, and also custom shop headphones that you can get a little more customized so that you can kind of choose which route you want to take between getting that stock headphone faster or waiting for a custom shop thing. So you'll start to see those changes coming through in the next 6 to 12 months or so. But our newest model that people know about that will also be involved in that process is the Boca Open. And this model has our first wood etched grill on it. And you can see that we laser cut this grill in-house. This is a bloodwood grill and then has a Spectraply wood around it. And we're gonna be doing that grill in different designs and also out of stabilized wood and of other natural woods that we'll have in the shell and everything. And so I'm just really excited to start doing the stabilized wood process with these and get different iterations of it into people's hands, because there's just a lot we can do with a wood cut grill like that, whereas most of our grills have that metal etching to them. And along with the custom shop, we're going to have new chassis designs and other new things of aesthetics that we're going to be coming out with this year. And also, I think some of you may know that I've been using that hashtag Woodlord on our Instagram page. And this is black and white ebony. So I found the real Woodlord, I call him, who is this guy that is from Laos, and he brings over one container full of black and white ebony per year, and I just think it's the most luxurious and beautiful wood. So I'm trying to get more black and white ebony that's fallen trees in Laos that actually get burned by the residents there because it's good firewood. And so he goes over there and saves it from being already fallen and pre-fallen wood to being so that brings it over so it can be made into things like headphones. And so I'm really excited to get more of this wood and share it with everybody this year. The last thing I'll talk about is just this amp, which is the Aegis amp. We're going to have a new run of these in a different look this year. This is our KT88 EL34 amp that has the wood panels on it. and has all the wood rolling combinations. It's transformer based. It can run anything, including your mod house tungsten. It's got plenty of power, and it's just kind of a do-it-all, really nice, good tube amp. And we're going to have a new look for that later this year. So that's all the new stuff at ZMF. I'll pitch it back to you guys.
A couple of quick ones. Sennheiser had their HD620S, which after decades finally brings a closed-back HD600 series headphone into production. Also, FIO had their cassette player and CD player there, which I saw at least one person using the CD player to evaluate headphones with. Now, another reviewer who ended up making headphones, DMS, had his 3D printed headphones there, and he told me that once they are gone, he will open source the design. Now, they had quite a bit of bass, but very tastefully done, and very sparkly, typical dynamic driver highs, but, you know, not so much that it was annoying listening to music such as the John O'Mcleary I mentioned before. But what was impressive was how open sounding they were. For example, the Black Keys sound spacious, with the bass sort of coming to you rather than pushed on you, as you'd expect maybe with dynamic drivers, so guitars ended up very quite crisp. Now, there was some mid-range blur during busier passages, but the impressively big soundstage did remind me somewhat of Electrostats. June Audio's Composer was one of the headphones I've been keen to check out for a long while, especially with all the praise people have been heaping upon it. Now, starting with the leather pads, as there are both leather and cloth pads available, I did find them initially a little bit too mid-forward for my taste, but still very open sounding. For example, Melody Grado, her voice was right up close, without any distortion though, being very dynamic and intense, but at the same time, the spaciousness and the instrument separation made the whole presentation both spacious and intense at the same time, something that is very hard to pull off with headphones. Bonobo's Down the Line from the Late Night Tales album was a bit too bright, but sharp and clean, and the bass was quite tight, maybe a touch low for my tastes, and possibly might be good for EQing. Now, instrument placement was very clearly defined, and later in the track it was very easy to get into the groove. Putting on something different again, Queens of the Stone Age, I Sat by the Ocean, rocked out incredibly well with these headphones. Now, the cloth pads mellowed out the mid-range a bit, but arguably detracted from the intensity, making them a bit more relaxed instead, albeit if the dynamics did seem to be preserved quite well. But the cloth pads reduced the bass too much for my preference. So I think with leather pads, these could be really excellent headphones, although probably I'd find acoustic music might be more preferable for them. There's nothing to say at this point, just enjoy the craziness of Pud's headphones. And watch the bit at the end.
It's just there.
Sounds?
Yeah.
I guess reaction pictures.
Oh my god.
Wait till the drop happens.
Yeah.
That's when the.
I'm telling you, I should get this. I should. Oh!
Just wait for it. Okay, hold on. I'll count it in.
Oh my god.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Oh! I'm telling you, if you had like indigestion, this would fix this immediately. Oh my god.
I don't know if
it actually is really relaxing.
I don't know if it would solve your indigestion or give you indigestion.
You know, they used to have like those electric devices, like in massages, like your abs.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll get a 6-pack from this.